Hi everyone, it's Don Franceschi, and I'm happy to be a part of the Lights, Camera, Connection Summit. Now I have to be honest though, when I was first approached by my friend Tony to speak at the summit, he outlined what the summit was going to be about, and he mentioned, oh yeah, we want to talk about, for those virtual presentations and meetings and videos that you're doing, we want folks to really know and understand what the differences are between live performances and virtual performances. Talk about storytelling, talk about audience engagement, talk about humor. And I said, oh, I can do all those things. Yeah, that's great. I love talking about those. And Tony looked at me and he goes, well, Don, that's not what I wanted you to talk about. And I said, no? And he goes, no. I said, well, what do you want me to talk about? And he said, I want you to talk about the technical part of a virtual presentation. The lighting, the background, the camera, the microphone, all of that stuff. And I said, really? The most unsexy part of a presentation, and that's what you want me to talk about? And he said, yes, that is what I want you to talk about. So, okay. It's not the most sexy part of a presentation, but it is that important preparation work that you need to do ahead of time, which can really make that virtual presentation, that virtual meeting, that video that you're filming, it can make it so much more engaging, so much more effective, if you'll be willing to spend that time to do some of the tips and tricks that I'll be talking about. Now, right up front, I am not the expert on all of these aspects of virtual presentations, but I have fiddled around with quite a few virtual presentations in the last couple of years, and especially the last several months. And I have a lot of the equipment that I'm going to recommend that you maybe want to try to use. So that's, I guess, why Tony asked me to do this. So just consider everything that I mention a tip. Think of it as a buffet. Take what you need, leave the rest. So if something resonates with you, give it a try. If something doesn't, that won't hurt my feelings. So let's dive right in and let's look at lights, camera, connection, the tech stuff. So here's a possible setup. So take a look for a second, and then I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think of all the things that are wrong with this. All right? Go ahead. You don't have to get all of them. You don't have to jot them down, but just be thinking of them. 10, 9, 8, do 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 do. Okay, so what did you come up with? Could it have been, let's say, kind of the distracting background? Maybe shooting up my nose? Way too dark? I'm not looking at the camera. It's not set at eye level. I mean, all those things could have been items that you mentioned, right? All right, let's see if we can tackle these individually one at a time. Because again, the goal is to not be distracting to our audience. So if the garage isn't a great place to set up, and I'd suggest that most of the time a garage is not a good place to set up, how can you find a good place to set up? Well, if you have an office, that's great. You can probably just set up in your desk and, do your recording there, either recording or, if you're doing a live stream or a Zoom conference call or whatever. However, if you're like me and you don't really have a desk set up, then you have to find a different place in your house. So what you can do, and it's suggested to me, and I really like this idea, is to get your phone, got like right here, my iPhone, and you can kind of walk around the room and see if you can find a place that looks like has a non-distracting background for you to use and it has enough lighting. So you can either use your phone, or in this case, I'm using my Canon M50. And just kind of walking around and taking a look in my house to see if I could find some good places where I can shoot. I could set up for shooting the video, or again, being like a live stream or whatever. So this particular room, I think, will work out okay for me. So let me sit down and let's take a look and see if we can make this work in this room. Hello, so we're now in the room, and I think we've got a pretty decent spot. However, there's two main things wrong here. One is the lighting. The second is the camera angle. So let's talk about each of them. First part, the lighting. Usually you want the light on your face. You don't want the majority of the light behind you. However, as you can see, I have the blinds open and the light from outside is just putting me in a silhouette. That doesn't look good. So what I'm probably going to do is close the blinds, open up the other blinds in this room, and that'll probably give me enough ambient light so that it lights my face. The second thing is the angle. Now you guys have all heard the phrase webcam. I call this nose cam because it's shooting right up your nose. And it doesn't look good for anybody. And I won't lie, I'll be 58 right now. As you get older, this angle even looks worse for us folks here that are getting a little bit older. So we want the angle to be more eye level or slightly higher. So let's see if we can make a few adjustments, and then we'll come back on and see if you notice a difference, okay? Okay, so we made a few changes here. Closed the blinds behind me, opened up the blinds around me, and elevated my little mini tripod that my Canon M50 is on. Everything is still not perfect. We're not 100% there, but it's looking better, right? So I'm going to look at myself over here. So yeah, it looks like I'm lit up a little bit. Still, my face is a little bit in shadow, but it's a lot better. The background is not horribly distracting. You can see I've got a lamp over here, and I'm sitting on a couch. Again, I don't have a desk, so I don't really have a spot to sit like that. But not a bad background. It still needs to be, the camera needs to be up a little higher, so I'll make an adjustment on that in a moment. And also, I'm looking at my face and still not 100% lit up the way I'd like. So what I think I'm going to do is add some artificial lights to this. Now, if I flipped around so that my face is right with the sun, it's going to be a little harsh, and then the background's going to be a little distracting. So let me, let's just grab the camera and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I got the camera, and I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to flip around and face. So I could do something like that, but it's almost too bright. It's almost washing out my face. Let me see if I can close this blind. That's way too much. Close it a little bit more. No, that's too dark. Go a little bit open. And then let's tap it on me. So that's not too bad. And it's just that I've got no place to really necessarily sit if I do it that particular way. So I'm lazy, I'm old, I want to sit down. So I'll see if I can adjust it where I was at. But you get the point. You generally want the light on your face. Now, if you can see from this room, I have lots of windows that go around the room. And I've got, like I said, the one closed and then the rest of them open. So a lot of times during the day, there's enough light flooding in from the other windows to make it really bright and clear on my face. But right now, this is pretty good here, but not really conducive to how I can set up. So if I get back to where I was at, it's a little too dark. But let me see if I can make some changes to that and add some additional lights so that it will be the right brightness so that I'm not like in the dark. And also see if I can adjust it a little bit. Now, you'll notice like the way I'm holding it now, it's a little bit above eye level. And that's really a good thing to do. If you've ever had professional photography pictures taken, like for headshots, etc., you'll notice I had some first time in my life a few years ago, and he had me stick your head out, stick your head out. And I'm going, this is uncomfortable and unnatural. But what they wanted you to do is you bring your head up and out, and then it kind of makes your neck look better. Instead of all scrunched in, you've kind of sticking your head out. If you have the camera angled a little higher so that you're looking up at it, not way up, that's not like, but just a little above eye level, then it's almost unconsciously you are sticking your head out a little bit and raising your chin, and it's a little more flattering for those of us, again, as getting older. So let's make a few changes, add some lights, and see if we can kind of get this, the lighting and the camera set up the way we want. So these are the lights that I'm going to be adding to this. It's called, I use these ones called Neewer lights. That's the brand. I have 2 sets of them, but I will just be using one for today. I really like them, and I have one set up over here that you can take a look at. So here's the light itself. So let's before we look at the front, let's move around to the back for a second. As you can see on these lights, you can operate them. Let's see if we can get a little brighter right there. There we go. You can have either battery operated. In fact, let's turn this around a little bit. Okay, so we can either operate with the battery. In fact, 2 batteries. When one dies, the other one will kick in. Or you can plug it in over here. It also has an adjustment. Now you can see that if we get in close. It says yellow, and this is white. So if you want it to have more of a warm tone, the LED lights, the row of yellow ones will come on, and you can adjust the intensity. And the same thing if you just want the white LED lights will come on if you want it a little brighter, not necessarily the warm kind of amber yellow tone to it. So let's flip it around again to the front so you can kind of see how it looks like. Let me stand over here. All right, so there you can kind of see how the lights are in different rows of white, yellow, white, yellow, white, yellow. It goes across, and I also have a diffuser that fits over it. There's, I think, 480 of these lights on here. I didn't count them, but I think that's what it is. So, and it can throw off a surprising amount of light. So let's hold the camera and let me turn it on for a second. Let's see if I get the... Nope. Ugh, there we go. Okay. So the top one is the amber. So let's turn that on a little bit so you can just kind of get a feel for how it looks. Kind of see it gives it more of a yellowish tone. It could be kind of a warm, nice look to it. And I'll turn that one back down. And then you can do the white light. So on the white light, it's a little brighter. In fact, you can do it so much you just blow out the camera here. You won't be able to see the picture. And you can turn them both on at the same time if you want to have some of both of them. So it gives you a chance to fiddle with it. So that's like all amber lights. And this would be all white lights. And this would be a combination of both. And it came with a little stand too, that you can see that I'm using here. So, okay, so that's the Neewer light. So let's adjust that, put that on, and see what it does. Okay, this is with our final couple of adjustments here with using the Canon M50 right now, as far as getting the lighting and the angle right. I've raised up the camera even a little bit higher, so I'm looking up a little bit at it, which again is kind of forcing me to have my chin out and my head out a little bit, which actually looks a little more flattering. I also have the Neewer light that I just showed you. It's kind of sitting directly behind the camera, just a little taller, so it's kind of coming down on my face. You don't want it coming straight down like the noontime sun, but kind of behind the camera seems to have a pretty good look. When I use the 2 lights, like if I do this at night, so there's no outside light at all coming into the room, then I'll put one as the main light. I'll put that a little brighter and a little closer to my face. And then I'll put the other one like at a 45-degree angle. I think it's called like the fill light. And I'll turn that down a little bit and I'll put it back a little bit further. So that basically just makes sure that the shadows are off of my face. So again, if you want to go on YouTube, there's a million different tutorials on how to set up if you have 1 or 2 or 3 lights, backlight, all that. And all that's great. I wouldn't overthink it too much. Basically, if I could summarize what we've done so far as the main important points, 1, don't have a distracting background. Have something that's kind of neutral and not too distracting. Kind of like what I have here. I see the blinds, I see the lamp, got the couch, but there's not a lot of other stuff going on. It's not like a big mess behind me, or if it's not like in the garage, or just with, you know, dirty clothes hanging all over the place. So it's not like that. So you want it kind of semi neutral, I guess, if you will, background. Now, before I go further on that, now some people like to use the virtual background feature on Zoom, for example. I'll admit I'm not a huge fan. If you are, that's great. I've seen too often when folks have used it because if they move quickly or if their laptop doesn't have enough capability, it just, if you've all seen what I'm talking about, it's like their limbs disappear for a second and then come on and then their limbs disappear again. I think that's actually distracting. Again, we don't want to distract to the audience. It's no use having really great content and really structured well and really delivered well if all this other tech, you know, setup stuff that we're talking about in my little section here is distracting to the audience, because they're not going to pay attention to that. So you don't want to distract your audience. So again, I'm not a huge fan of the virtual backgrounds. I mean, some people love them. I almost prefer like a white background. And I'll explain that again in a minute. Especially if you're doing some videos, I think even just a plain white background can work okay too. But in this particular case, you get the little feel for my house and where I'm living, and it looks a little more homey. So hopefully that you know, kind of lets you know a little bit about me, because I don't have an office. If you had an office and you had your plaques in the background and your maybe trophies, your bookcase, all that sort of thing, that can also look very professional. Anyway. So again, reiterate, we said make the background less distracting. You want to add plenty of light. Generally, you want most of the light coming on your face, not from behind you, because then that just puts you in shadow. Remember how that looked earlier? In this particular room, to avoid that, I closed the blind directly behind me. I closed that so that the light wasn't coming as bright. Open the other windows in this room. There's like 5 sets of windows in this particular room. So open the other ones to get some ambient light. And because my face was still just a hair dark, I added a light directly above the camera here just to fill in my face a little bit and make sure that I'm well lit and I'm kind of centered okay. And then lastly, I raised the camera level up. No more nose cam. So we have it up a little higher so that I'm looking up. It's much more flattering than having the camera shoot up your nose. And also, because it's slightly higher than my eyes, it's almost forcing me to kind of look up a little bit, just a little bit, and kind of bring my head and chin out a little bit, which again, for those of us as you get older that have maybe your neck doesn't look quite as good as it used to, that can help look a little more flattering too. So this is all the setup. Now, when I do my videos, I actually use a laptop. So I'm going to be showing you how that setup looks when I have the laptop hooked up next. So let's click the finger. Well, here I am with my Canon M50 recording myself while I have the Zoom program open. So that's way too many dawns here. And I'm guessing that when I play this back, it's going to look pretty freaky. But I did want to show you a few things on here. So as you can see right now, I just have this resting on a box. And in fact, if you can see from the side here, it's actually on some boxes of poker chips. So I got some boxes of poker chips here, and then an actual cardboard box on top of that. And then I have my laptop set up as so. You'll also notice this thing right up here. I just wanted to show it to you. We haven't talked about that yet. It's so important if you want to have a connection with your audience is to look at the camera. Now, it's easy for me to forget because a lot of times I'm looking at the screen. I'm looking at what's on the screen. I'm looking at the people that are on the screen, etc. But if you can remember to look where the actual camera lens is, so let me move out of the way a second. So I don't know if you can kind of see it there. It's got, I put a little smiley face. So right in between the two eyes is where I want to focus. That's where the camera is. So that reminds me to be looking there instead of looking, on the screen. Now, sometimes if you have a group, you need to be looking at the screen, see what's going on, see if people are falling asleep, if they're left, if they're enjoying what you're presenting, getting some of that feedback that you don't get in a regular presentation because, they're doing it virtually. However, when you're actually talking with the group, you want to be spending as much time as you can looking at the camera, not over to the side. It's much more engaging and it creates a much better connection with the audience. So at the laptop, so I can never remember where the little camera was, so I actually did that little smiley face so it would remind me of that. And then you can see, again, I've got the newer light hooked up here. I've got a couple of the other lights on, and as you can kind of see, that's just my little setup here. Not fancy or anything, but makes it fairly clear. And this is again for a kind of a quick meeting. I just have the one light. I did the lights so that I'd look okay on the camera, and I elevated the laptop so that the camera was pretty much at eye level. So let's make some changes if we're going to actually do a virtual presentation of how it might look. Okay, so now I have my laptop, which is how I usually do my video conferences and my video presentations. I'm using this Lenovo laptop. Now, I think I mentioned when I finished the last episode, when I clicked there, that when I'm shooting my video, I use the laptop. So what I actually meant is more for video meetings. For my video meetings, this is typically what I'm using. For my video meetings I'm attending, like for example, a Zoom meeting or my presentations. Now you might notice that there's a difference in the quality of the picture, and that's for two reasons. One, it's being recorded on Zoom, and every time you record something on Zoom, it's not a necessarily super high definition output that you receive when you get that recording done back. So that's one reason. And then the second thing is I'm actually using the laptop camera right now. I'm not using the Canon M50. Now, many of you have a camera and microphone in your laptop. I'm also using the microphone that's in the laptop as well. If you want to upgrade your presentation and bring it to a little even more professional level, then you can either add a webcam. In this case, whether it be something that you clip onto the back, onto the top of the laptop, or you can use, what I'm going to use is actually my Canon M50, and there's a program through Canon that you can use to use that as your webcam, and you just run a cord into the USB port in your laptop, and bam, then you can use that, and the picture quality is much better. But I did want to show you kind of, this would be like a setup if it's not super important, if I was just calling somebody and going to talk with them for just a couple minutes or anything, maybe not necessarily bring out every piece of equipment that I own. So this wouldn't be the setup that I would necessarily use for a video presentation, but just wanted to show you so that when we upgrade the camera and then when we upgrade the microphone, you can kind of see the difference of how it looks and how it sounds. So this is how it is right now, and so I'm going to stop it here, and then we're going to do some upgrades and see if you can tell the difference. So let's hit my stop recording. Okay, have the complete setup now. I've got the Canon M50 as my webcam. I have my microphone set up, and I'll show you that in just a second. It's a Blue Yeti microphone. So hopefully you should be able to see a little difference between the camera from the M50 using that camera and then the camera that was actually built into the laptop. In fact, it's almost too detailed here. Maybe I should get back further. but it's much clearer, and the sound should be a lot better with the Blue Yeti microphone that I'm using. I still have the light on behind the camera here, but I don't necessarily need it quite as much. Since I started doing this recording, the sun has gotten down a little bit, so it's really coming into the room, so I have a little more ambient light than I had before. But it looks like my face is pretty well lined up here. I've got a little tighter shot than I did earlier. You can't see the lamp, but you can see, hopefully, me, and I should be in pretty well in focus, etc. And you should be able to hear me pretty well as well. So that is the setup of when I have the camera, the lighting, I've elevated it, and I'm using the Blue Yeti microphone. So let's go ahead and stop this, and then we're going to talk a little bit about sound next. So let's turn this off. Okay, as promised, I'm going to talk a little bit about sound. When you're doing any kind of virtual presentation, obviously the picture part, because people are primarily visual learners and observers, that's so important. However, I've noticed a tendency that people will forgive if the picture's not 100% great, but they won't forgive you if the sound is not good. So you definitely want to have some good sound. And many laptops that have their own built-in microphones, they're not the greatest microphones. So right now I'm using the Blue Yeti. So let me grab it and show you. Here we go. I can turn it to the side here. So this is the Blue Yeti. Many of you have probably seen this particular microphone before. It's a very common one. One little tip, and you have many different ways you can set this microphone up, and it plugs directly into the USB port in your laptop. You can have it set up so that it will pick up just in the front, which is the way I have it set up right now. You can have it set so that it'll pick up sound from all around. If you're doing an interview situation, you can have it so it'll get the people in the front and the people in the back. It will record those folks. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. But don't forget, if you have it set so that you're just picking up from the front, see the emblem that says blue right there? This is actually the front of the microphone. I've seen a few folks that had it set and wondering why the sound wasn't the way they wanted with this, because they had the back facing as you're talking. So no. And I won't get into all the features of this particular microphone, but it's a good microphone. It's a condenser microphone, which means it's pretty sensitive, which also means that if you have a lot of ambient sound in the room that you're doing your recording in, or that you're doing your virtual presentation in, sometimes this is not a good choice for a microphone because it will pick up a lot of extraneous noise. A little while ago, I had a neighbor had their leaf blower going. So when that's going, this microphone will pick that up. So another option that you can do is a dynamic microphone. So I have another one here. This is the Audio-Technica ATR 2100. This is a dynamic microphone. Blue Yeti was a condenser microphone. This is a dynamic microphone. What are the pros and cons of both of them? Well, the Blue Yeti will pick up the sound. It's very clear, and you don't have to be right on top of it. Dynamic microphone has this area, like right here, is where the sound is picked up. It's a pattern that it's, where it's picking up the majority of your sound. And I just forgot the term for that. Kind of Polaroid? I can't recall it. I forgot. It doesn't matter. It's so it's like right here. So you almost have to eat the microphone, which if you're giving a presentation, it could be a little distracting. If you have it on a stand, you have it like it's in the shot now, and it's a little distracting. You've seen some like probably podcasters where they have it maybe off to the side. That's not quite as bad, but I prefer to use the Blue Yeti because I can just set it down out of sight and it will still pick up the sound quite well, and it won't be a distracting visual element to it. So again, there's one other microphone, and that would be a remote microphone, a wireless microphone, and I'll show that again in a minute. My only suggestion when it comes to the sound is that you want to use a microphone as opposed to probably the built-in microphone on the laptop, because usually those aren't that good. And if you use an external microphone, like a Blue Yeti or even the Audio-Technica ATR 2100, dynamic or condenser, probably condenser is a little better if you don't have a lot of ambient sound. Now, the one thing on a dynamic microphone, if you have a lot of sound going around outside, it won't pick that sound up like in another room or driving by. It will just pick up the sound from right here. That's where it'll pick up. However, the bad thing is you have to be right on, you're practically eating the microphone to get it to come out loud enough when you're recording or you're doing your meeting. Whereas the Blue Yeti works because it's a condenser microphone, different type, it will pick up the sound, other sound, but if you don't have that sound from out and about, it will pick up your voice fine, and you can set it aside kind of out of the camera angle. All right? So that's what we're going to talk about for the audio part. And let's talk about if you're going to shoot video. Whoops, I guess I got to get ready. Now let's try it again. You ready? As I mentioned at the end of the last segment, there is another microphone that we're going to use today, and I really like it. It's a wireless microphone, but you know what? I forgot one. It's this one over here. It's the Shure VP83 microphone, or more commonly called a shotgun microphone. This particular microphone sits on top of the camera, goes on the hot shoe mount, and then it plugs into the mic jack on the side. This microphone works very well if you're between, say, 6 to 10 feet away from the camera. Let's say you have it set on a tripod and you're speaking about 6 to 10 feet away. This will pick up much better than the microphone in the camera. Now, the one in the camera is not bad, but this will work better. So I use this on occasion. It's pretty good. But the one I was specifically mentioning was this one over here, this wireless microphone. It's a Comica CVM WM100. And this particular microphone can pick up for, 100, maybe even 200 feet away from the camera. I love it. It's got two components. It's got a transmitter. It's got the part that hooks onto the back of your pants, like the belt or a back pocket. And then you run this cord up your shirt, and then it comes out, and you put it on your lapel right here. You just hook it on, and you speak into it, and it transmits from here to this unit, which is the receiver. This part sits on the hot shoe mount of the camera, like so. You can do it a couple different ways. You can move it around. And then it plugs in from here to the mic jack on the camera. And again, this has a huge range. You can have the camera way far away from you as the speaker, and it will pick up sound just as if you're right next to the person. Someone's standing right next to you. So this is my favorite one if you're going to do a recording that's, for example, if you're taping a presentation that you're doing and the camera's quite a ways away from you, this works great. If you're doing a recording where the camera is not too far away from you, the shotgun microphone also works very well. So we're going to listen to both of them. So as we mentioned in the last segment, sometimes you don't want to be confined. You don't want to have to give your virtual presentation or your live stream that you're doing, or sometimes it might be even just a video that you're filming for later that you can put on your YouTube channel or whatever. You want to get up. So right now I'm standing up. And what do you do for your backdrop in that case? What I like to use is this projection screen that I have received many years ago, and it just works perfect for me. I'm not super tall, so if you're right around 5'7"-ish, maybe on a good day with some heels, or shorter, this will work fine. If you're really taller, so that you're like above that, then that might not work quite as well and you might have to come up with a different option. But this projection screen, I think, works really well. So let me flip the camera for a second. So let me get out of the way and I'll put it like this and I will close it. There we go. All right. So now, as you can see, it's just got the stand, got the screen. I love using this particular screen because I like to move around a lot. So it enables me to move around. You know, let's see if I can make the actual, there we go, we're moving around. I can move around, and also I can stand to one side. Let's say I stand over to this side a little bit more. Then on the other side, I can show a PowerPoint screen or a slide or a video or something of that nature. So I can do my graphics as well. So I like to stand up, and I'm going to flip it back to me again. Let's do it. There I am. Yeah, I like to I'm a very mobile presenter. By that I mean I move around a lot. I have a lot of gestures. I'm not rooted in one spot, definitely, when I give my presentations. So I like to move around a lot. And for virtual presentations, you want to give it that little extra energy. So I think if you stand up, it can really help you accomplish that. So if you stand up, then you need to have something for your background that's not distracting. And I like to use the white screen. And that way I can just, if I need to have like my laptop like over here, I could have it down just out of sight where I could glance down at it. Or I can have my lights behind the camera here. I can have, and I film myself in the screen, so I'll show you what I mean. So I will adjust this a little bit. And it's on a tripod, so you don't see the frame of the projection screen, you just see my face. And I'll do an example again here in a minute when I get everything all set up. But I did want to show you this screen. If you want to have more energy in your presentation, then one of the setup things you might want to consider is to do it standing up. And if you do that, then you need to have a good background, and I think a projection screen like I have behind me works pretty well for that. So let's take and do a few shots with the projection screen in the background, and then also with I might be able to test the shotgun microphone and the wireless microphone so you can kind of hear the difference and hear how it sounds. Okay? Okay, we're back. I'm now set up with the projection screen behind me as my backdrop. You can see it behind me. I have a light to my right, a light to my left, but over a little bit, kind of more on the line of the camera. So it's kind of facing kind of on long lines with the camera, and also to kind of keep the shadows to a minimum behind me. So I'm trying to keep them to a minimum, which as I'm looking at it, looks like I'm doing a pretty good job with that. And I adjusted the shotgun microphone. I have it set on a 0 gain setting and turned it up a little bit in the camera. So this should be pretty good sound from the camera end, and the lighting should be pretty good. And also my face should be lit, and you can have the nice, plain background behind me. Again, this is for some of your virtual presentations you might be giving, and or if you're doing any kind of videotaping, a tutorial or something like that that you would like to place on your YouTube channel, this works well. I especially like the white screen behind me because I can move over to the side a little bit, and then I can point over here. For example, if I said, hi, I'm Don Franceschi, I'm the author of From Awful to Awesome, 9 Essential Tools for Effective Presentations, I could stand to the side and point, and I could put my graphic for my book over here. So I'll try to add that in editing. Or if you wanted to say, please go to my website at fromawfultoawesome.com, and I could point over here and show the graphic. Or if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, you could have your PowerPoint presentations come up to the side of you so they can see you and your slide. I think it works very well. Now, the last thing is, if you're doing a lot of this, if you're doing especially video shooting, not so much for a virtual presentation, but if you're doing like a shot for, you want to do a tutorial video for your YouTube channel, as I mentioned earlier, then if you have a camera remote, that could be so helpful for you, because there's nothing like having to go over and turn it on and go over and turn it off, because then in the editing you have to keep clipping that spot, those parts out. That's no fun. Here you can just, and you can get them on Amazon, they're not too expensive. Just get one that works for your camera that you're using, and then you can just stand here, you can make sure you're all in the frame. You know, I can look right now, am I in the frame? Is the shadows okay? Is my face lit pretty well? It looks like it's okay. And the microphone looking all right? Okay, everything's looking okay. And then you can just hit the button to start it, and then hit the button to stop when you're done. So this is the sound with the shotgun microphone, and the last test we're going to do is with the wireless microphone, the Comica one with the transmitter and the receiver. And let's hear how the difference is on that sound. Okay, now we're doing our test with the Comica wireless microphone. Remember, it had the two components. So the first component, I have the microphone. If you can see it here, I'll see if I can get closer to the camera right there. You got the microphone that's hooked on to the transmitter that's on my back pocket. I've got that hooked up there. And then it's transmitting to the receiver, which is on top of the Canon M50. And then it's going into the mic input for the Canon M50. What I really like about the wireless microphone is you can be a mile away, well, not a mile, but probably a couple 100 feet you could probably get away with this particular wireless microphone away from the camera, which I don't know when you would do it that far away, but you could have it set up quite a ways away, and you could still be getting that really good sound like, you know, you're sitting right in front of me. So I really like that. It gives you the freedom of movement. You can move around, as opposed to if you have a fixed microphone that if you walk away, then all of a sudden they can't hear you. Or if it's over here and I turn my head, all of a sudden now you can't hear it. So this way it's, you know, right on the shirt. It's just, I don't know, not too far away from my mouth. And it's, I believe, picking up really well. And we'll find out when I play it back. So that is the Comica wireless microphone. And now I'm going to show some PowerPoint slides over to the side here, just summarizing some of what we've talked about. We talked about nailing your background. You need to kind of see where you're going to do this, either for a meeting or a presentation or for a video shooting. Where are you going to have your background? Again, you can use your phone, put it in selfie mode and walk around and find like where there's a good spot. So that's step one. You want a non-distracting type of spot. Number two, get that lighting right. Find a good spot for the lighting so that the lighting is more on your face and not behind you, so it casts you in silhouette or they can't really see you. So lighting is number two. Next, you want to elevate the camera. Have it at least at eye level, at least do it at eye level, and preferably even up a little bit higher than that so that it kind of gets you to lean out, your chin up, your head up, and it kind of forces you to look out at the camera, and it's a little more flattering of an angle. So that's the next thing, is to be sure you get your angle right. Then for the camera, if you want to up your professionalism, you can use either a webcam, or in the case, what I'm doing now is using your own camera. And I have, like I mentioned earlier, my Canon M50 I'm using as my webcam for meetings and presentations through my laptop, or what I'm shooting this video on right now. So if you up the game, because the laptop camera is not necessarily the best. So if you can use an external camera, again, webcam, and again, by positioning that camera lens right, it doesn't become a nose cam, right? So we want a webcam or your camera, you can use that. And it's just a little better quality. And also, the microphone that's in a lot of folks' laptops is not necessarily the greatest microphone either. You can use an external microphone, point over here, external microphone, and that can up your professionalism and how it looks as well. And, excuse me, how it sounds as well. It'll sound much better. You can use a condenser microphone if you don't have a lot of ambient noise. Condenser microphones work great, and you can place it out of the way like the Blue Yeti. Or you can use a dynamic microphone if it's a lot of ambient noise, or if you want to hold the microphone. The only thing is that can be a little distracting for the people that are watching it. So I don't know if I recommend the dynamic microphone as often, but that is an option. Or you can use a shotgun microphone on top of your camera, which we showed a minute ago. And right now we can use the microphone, the wireless microphone, the Comica one, which is another option for you as well. And that one works very well because you can position the camera way far away from you and still get really good sound for it. This one particular one works from quite a distance. So those are all options that you want to do. And then lastly, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but if I didn't, I'm going to mention it here again, is get that camera remote. That can work really well if you're doing a lot of this shooting like I am today, all by myself. So instead of having to keep going and touching the button, just consider using that camera remote. And I'll put it up here as another item. All right. So now we've come to the spot where we get into the question answers, and you can talk to me live. I'm not an expert on everything, that's for sure, but I'll do my best to answer any questions that you have. And again, if I can provide any further service for you when it comes to becoming an engaging presenter, if you'd like to take those skills from awful to awesome, then please go to my website at FromAwfulToAwesome.com. I have a YouTube channel, From Awful to Awesome. And of course, I have my book on Amazon, From Awful to Awesome, 9 Essential Tools for Effective Presentations. So now, lights, camera, connection, my segment's done. Let's hear from you.